Okay, does everybody see the screen? Antignos ish socho, Yosef ben Yoezer. Everybody see that? Me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we see.
great, great. Okay, good. I'm just going to start in one moment. And I'm stopping the share, and then I'll continue it. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so we are now going to be continuing in the Pirqe Avot. I just wanted to clarify one thing from last week. And then once I clarify the point from last week, I'm going to continue on to the next Mishnah. So last week we studied about Antignos ish socho. And we said that he had a very, well, I wouldn't say unusual statement, but a statement that was interpreted by some people in an unusual way regarding the question of sachar va'onesh. And what was interesting about his statement, and now let's put the misinterpretation of his statement aside. What he did say is that one should not do the mitzvot with the expectation, or rather the anticipation is a better word, of receiving a peras. And if you remember, Harambam explains that the word peras doesn't mean your payment. It doesn't mean what's due to you. The word peras means something additional, something that you're not necessarily, it's nobody owes it to you. It's not something that you're owed. Like I said, like a tip in a restaurant. If a waiter does a good job, he gives you the tip. Why is that such an important point? The point of peras. For me, I think this is the reason that people misinterpreted a statement. People said from his statement, we learned that there is no reward for the mitzvot. Remember that? He had two talmidim. He had a talmid called Sadok. He had a talmid called Baitos. They heard the statement and they said, aha, there is no reward for the mitzvot. Why did they say that? How come? Because look what he says. He says you shouldn't anticipate a peras. Don't do it for the peras, right? What he's implying is that maybe you will get a peras, maybe you will get some extra tip, maybe you won't get an extra tip. You know, in Israel, there's some people, I don't know how it works in America, but I knew a person who was about to start the army, and he wanted to make some money because he wanted to buy himself a car. So he was working as a waiter in a restaurant. He told me he doesn't get paid by the owner of the restaurant. Everything was tips. It was tips. So the owner didn't have a legal obligation to pay him. If you're telling somebody, you know, you may get a tip, you may not get a tip, it depends. That means that nobody has an obligation to pay him, right? You all following this? So Antignos ish sochos seems to be suggesting, well, if the best you can do is to get a tip, and if you get a tip, that's not the reason to do the mitzvah. We discussed that last week, right? We discussed last week how when we do the mitzvah, we do it me'ahava, we do it with love. But nevertheless, how can he say that? He is implying that we're not entitled to a reward, that we may receive a tip, but we're not entitled to reward. That's strange. I thought we are entitled to a reward. I mean, we are, you know. So I don't want to get anybody upset or particularly perturbed, but now you see why Sadok and Baitos misinterpreted his words. Do you see that? Is it clear, or do you want me to repeat this? Okay, good. So what is he saying? Okay, so
can you repeat it?
yes,
can you repeat it succinctly? Sorry,
Nathan, you're going to be working in a restaurant. You might get some tips, you might not, but I want you to enjoy the job, and I want you to do it because you love it. If you get a tip, that's great. That's the best you can do. What am I saying? I'm saying I'm not paying you. So what does Antignos ish socho seems to be saying? Well, to get paid what you're owed, there is nothing you're owed. That's not going to happen. You might get a tip. that suggests that there's no sachar for the mitzvot, that there's no reward.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay?
Got it. Thank you.
Of course. So what does he mean? So why? Okay, so why would Antignos Ish Sacho express himself in such a controversial manner? And I will now answer the question. Because the truth is, what the Hakhamim say, Sechar misvot, behai alma leka. What that means is, the reward for this misvot, for the performance of the misvot, is not to be found in this world. The real reward for the misvot is to be found in the world to come, in Olam Haba. So what do you have in this world? Harambam explains that in this world, if a person does the misvot, Hashem is going to help him. Hashem is going to help the person doing the misvot by giving him prosperity, by giving him health, by giving him the ability to enjoy his existence in this world so that he can continue performing the misvot. But that prosperity and that health and that all the good things that happen to us in this world, that's not the real reward. That's just like a bridge. It's like Hashem is like kind of patting us on the back and say, keep going. I love it. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. This is great. But that's not the reward. So like if a child is like, a child is going to school. Imagine this. And the parent keeps giving him, let's say, gives him some candy, or I don't know. I don't like giving kids candy. I really dislike that because it's unhealthy. But I'm just using the mashal. The child gives the kid candy because he wants to encourage the kid. He's not giving him the candy because it's some reward. The reward is going to be he's going to come out of school with an education, with knowledge. That's the real reason the parent is giving him the candy. So if Hashem is doing good things with us in this world, that's like candy, and it's great. We all want it. We all want the good things, and we pray for the good things. But that's not the ultimate reward. The ultimate reward is going to be in Olam Haba. And that's why Antignos Ish Socho is very careful. He doesn't say, Al menat lekabel sachar. We're not getting sachar in this world. We're getting great things. We're getting candy. We're getting wonderful things. But we're not getting sachar. Sachar misvot, behai alma leka. In this world, you don't have sachar misvot. You have encouragement. The world to come is where you're going to get the sachar. The real sachar is in Olam Haba. You understand? And one day we'll study about Olam Haba. Harambam has a whole chapter in Hilchot Teshuvah Pirqe, where he discusses in very beautiful terms what Olam Haba is. It's not a simple subject, so that's a separate subject. I wanted to explain to you why Antignos Ish Socho expresses himself in the manner that he expressed himself. So that was last week. And before we continue, are there any questions about last week's Mishnah? Okay, so now this week, we're going to be starting with the new Mishnah. Yosef ben Yoezer, Ish Serera. Just some historical perspective. We're coming now close to the Greek occupation of Israel in the days of the Maccabim. It was a very tumultuous time for the Jewish people. Yosef ben Yoezer, Ish Serera, was one person. Yosef ben Yohanan, Ish Yerushalayim, was another person. This was starting the era of what's called the Zugot. These were the two leaders of the Jewish people, leaders of the yeshiva, the two prominent Hakhamim that guided the Jewish people in this generation. They were actually the heads of the Bet Din. They were the heads of the Jewish Bet Din. So Yosef ben Yoezer and Yosef ben Yohanan, each one of them had a statement. As long as we're talking a little about history, Yosef ben Yoezer, this is in the Midrash Rabbah in Bereshit. It says that Yosef ben Yoezer was walking once in the street. It was a rainy day, and there was mud all over the place. And as he was walking in the street, one of the Greek army people, one of the heads of the army there, knocks him down on the floor. He falls in the mud. It so happened that the person who knocked him down on the floor, who knocked this Hacham down on the floor, was the nephew of the Hacham. The Hacham, Yosef ben Yoezer, had a sister. This sister had a son. The son converted, so to speak. he joined the Greek forces. Many Jews joined the Greek forces. So this son joined the Greek forces, and upon realizing that it was his own uncle that he knocked down to the floor in the mud, in the rain, the uncle gets up, he sees his nephew. The nephew is on a horse, the uncle is on the ground, and the nephew pities his uncle, and he tells his uncle, "Join me." And the uncle says, "I will not join you. Why would I do that?" And the nephew says, "Well, you can do that because look at your state and look at my state. I am in a tremendous state of wealth. The Greeks have done so much good with me. And you're in this pathetic state." And the uncle looks at the nephew and he says, "If God has allowed you to achieve so much beauty and so much grandeur in this world, I can't imagine what God has in store for me in the world to come." And the nephew continues and he says, "Well, yeah, but look at you now. You're pathetic. You're covered in mud. You're all wet. And I'm going to take you. And if I want to execute you, nobody's going to tell me what to do." And he says, "That may be true. But if God makes people like me, who God loves, suffer so much in this world, can you imagine the suffering that you will encounter in the world to come?" This is the conversation. The guy got scared. He got scared. The nephew got scared. And the story has it that he actually killed himself. He killed himself based upon the Abot Mitot Betin. The story says that what was it? Oh yeah, he went to this wall. The wall was being held up by a beam of wood, and crazy story. He hung himself over a blade. So that's Abot Mitot Betin. Before hanging himself over the blade, he lit fire to the piece of wood that was holding the wall in place. So he hung himself over the blade. He hung himself. That's Heinek. When the fire burnt the wood, it burnt him also. That's Esh, the second one. When the wall fell down and crumbled upon him, that's Sakila. And finally, when he fell down, it was on the sword, and that was Heinek. That's what happened to the nephew of this Hacham. So it was a very, very tumultuous time. This
But
story
Rabbi,
is
can
short.
I ask a question?
Yes.
Why is there the assumption that there has to be a certain level of suffering, either in this world or in the next world? Why is that?
I mean, first of all, that's a good question. I'll tell you what, we believe it's one of the emunot that Harambam brings in the 13 principles. One of the emunot is Sachar Va'onesh. So we do believe that there is some punishment in the next world. And what is that punishment? Harambam describes it in that same chapter of Hilchot Teshuvah, Perek Het of Hilchot Teshuvah. But I don't want to say that it's a Christian type of punishment, if that's what your question is. And I think that's what your question is. So what is it?
I'm not necessarily asking what the punishment is, just the idea that I guess that we're all entitled to some form of it. And I hear you because of the Sachar Va'onish, but just looking at it in the way of, oh, you had such a good life in this world, you must be suffering in the next.
Oh, well, I mean, I hear you. Okay, I got it. No. So the suffering that this person supposedly was, and we believe that supposedly, that Yosef ben Yoezer condemned him to in the next world was based upon the fact that he left the Torah, he left the religion. Right. That's the reason. So it's not. And by the way, we're very careful. We don't preach, in public. We don't do that type of stuff. But this is a personal conversation between an uncle and a nephew, and the nephew kind of had a gotcha moment, right? And the uncle got him right back. Like you didn't.
But it's still a conversation. It's still a way that people speak now. When people ask questions, theodicy questions, you'll be like, oh, well, you don't know what's going to happen to him later, right? Or if someone is suffering very, very poorly in this world, you'd say, oh, that means, in Olam Haba, it's going to be all good for you. But
maybe and maybe
right,
not.
like is this just we're just making ourselves feel better?
I don't disagree. I don't believe that we can make statements like that. Right. I think in the context of people that we know very closely and who are looking for guidance, sometimes people come to me, perhaps as a rabbi, but that wouldn't be a public statement. That would be a private conversation. Maybe I understand something about what's happening there. So then, yeah, maybe, but just as an overall rule, I don't know what people suffered in the Holocaust. I don't know why little kids were killed in such savagery. And I don't take particular consolation in the knowledge that they have a better world to come. I don't, I don't question it, but I also, I'm not going to justify it, right? So let's just be humble and accept that there are things in this world. And I agree with you. I don't take the Christian approach, condemning people and so on. That's really, but this was a private conversation. And I emphasize that. It was a private conversation. Okay, let's see what Yosef ben Yoezer actually said. It's an interesting statement. He says as follows. I will first explain the Mishnah at the Peshat level. And then I will explain the depth of the Mishnah, because the Mishnah actually has a very interesting under and deep level, okay? Number one, Yehi betecha betva al Hakhamim. Your house should be a place where the Hakhamim could gather to have their meetings. Meaning, if the Hakhamim want to get together and want to have a discussion about a halachic issue, whatever that halachic issue is, and they need a place to meet, you should grab the opportunity, bring the Hakhamim into your house, and let them have the meeting by you. Now, you may say, well, gee, that's kind of a strange statement. I mean, just go to the synagogue, go to the Bet Midrash. But if you keep in mind that this Mishnah was said during the days of the Maccabim, of the Hashmonaim, when there were the wars with the Greeks, and the Greeks outlawed many things, including the study of Torah, you can understand why Yosef ben Yoezer is saying it's a great zechut to bring the Hakhamim to your house and have them conduct their discussions in your house. That's the first statement.
So if it's that context, why is it said in a universal way? Why is it accepted as a universal statement and, instruction, prescription?
I think that's a good question. And there's two answers. The simple answer is that, yeah, you're right. That's a context that it was said in. And yet today, it's a zechut. If we can have Hakhamim in our house to give shiurei Torah, it brings beracha to our houses. So it could be that the particular historical episode brought about this attitude, but it's a great attitude, right? There's a pasuk that says, "Bechol makom asher azkir et shemi, avo elecha uberachticha." Any place where my name is mentioned, meaning where there is Talmud Torah, that is a place where I would bring beracha to. So this is, while the historical episode brings about this statement, it's a great thing to have. We all want to have Talmud Torah in our house. But I will also explain it at the deeper level. But first, Beheve mitabek ba'afar raglehem. What that literally means is you should allow yourself to be dusted, meaning to be covered in dust by the dust that rises from their legs, from their walking, because back then the streets were not paved as they are today. So when somebody would walk in a dry street, it would create, some dust. And if you're walking in back of the person, you would be covered in the dust. Okay. What's the relationship between the first statement and the second statement? And the answer is as follows. If you have the option of having the Hakhamim come to your house and have their meetings in your house, or give a shiur Torah in your house, that's great. Because as I said, that brings berachat to the house. When there is Torah in the house, Hashem brings a special feeling, a special blessing to the house, whatever that berachah is. But if you can't do it, then what's the second choice? Follow them. Wherever they go, they're going somewhere else and they're giving a class somewhere else, follow them. Because by following them and participating in their classes, you are going to derive a certain benefit that you cannot derive alone. Because as smart as we may be, and many of us are really smart, the Torah is given down masoret, ish mipi ish. Without teachers, we cannot properly understand the Torah. I want to stop here for a moment and then I'm going to continue. There is this view that somehow the Torah is like a book. Okay, so I can open up the New York Times and I can read the New York Times and I understand it. And I can also open up the Bible and I can read the Bible and I understand it. The only thing is there's some language issues because I don't speak Hebrew so well. So I guess I can just get a dictionary. And if I have a dictionary, so English on one side, Hebrew on the other side, I can understand the Torah. So let me ask you a question. Is it true that you can understand the New York Times? Is there anybody here who can't understand the New York Times? You can all understand it. Why is that? Why can you understand the New York Times? Because you were all raised in New York, or you live in New York. You understand the New York culture. You understand what the metro section, what does it mean, the metro section? You kind of understand that, right? You know the character of the different boroughs. You know about de Blasio. This is, part of being in a culture. That culture has certain ways of shaping the reality that we see with our minds. And it is through these particular spectacles that we read. There is no blind reading. So if you were to take somebody from 500 years ago, let's just take from the Roman Empire, right? And you translated the New York Times into Latin for this Roman. Would he understand the New York Times the way you understand the New York Times?
No.
Of course not. That's right. Because it's not just a question of translating words from Latin to English, or from English to Latin. There's a whole culture there. There's a whole lay mental. There's a whole, I'm using the word of Rabbi Vigneto, there's a whole Torah shebe'al peh. And if you don't have the Torah shebe'al peh of that particular culture, then you can't decode the books. By the way, if I went to India today and they had a newspaper written in their language, and somebody translated it to English to me, would I understand that newspaper as well as I understand the New York Times? No, because I'm not part of that culture. So let's go back to the question about reading the Torah. Can I understand the Torah? Well, it depends. If I have the Torah shebe'al peh, then yes, I can understand. Jordan cannot understand the New York Times. He is from Seattle. Okay. All right. Well, we can't understand the Seattle. We cannot understand the Seattle Times or the way you guys run things in your city, I got to tell you. But the not that New York is much better. Nevertheless, if I have the Torah shebe'al peh of the Jewish people, then yes, I can read the Torah. If I do not have the Torah shebe'al peh, my reading of the Torah is going to be akin to a person from, 1,000 years ago or 1,005 years ago, from somewhere in the Mediterranean basin, being given a dictionary and being told, read the New York Times and explain it to me. He wouldn't be able to. So it's the same thing with Torah. And that's why when you study Torah, you absolutely need Hakhamim, who are part of the Shalshelet HaKabbalah. And let us look for a moment at the greatest Hacham, in my opinion, after the closure of the Gemara, Harambam. As I said, Harambam himself was a student before he was a teacher, before he was a writer, before he got up and started giving derashot in Cordova at a very young age, by the way. Before all that, he had teachers, and those teachers transmitted to Harambam a certain
Laymental.
not just a laymental. I mean, yes, a laymental, but these a heritage. That heritage is the heritage of Jewish civilization that has been alive for thousands of years.
Rabbi, would you call it an intellectual tradition? Is that a fair?
It's an intellectual tradition, but it's more than that. Because sometimes when we think about intellectual traditions, it's like kind of like, okay, that's like the way I think, but it's the way we behave. It's civilization. You see what I'm saying? This is the way we act. This is the midot we have. This is the derech eres we have. This is how we treat our parents. This is how we treat our teachers. All that's part of civilization. So you can't just say, oh, Harambam, the greatest Hacham, he just studied Torah. He didn't study Torah on his own, not at all. He was a student, and then he became a teacher. And that's why it's so important to open your house to the Hakhamim. But if you can't open your house to the Hakhamim, you need to be in contact with them. Otherwise, we ain't going to understand the Torah. And that's the next thing. Now, if you're chasing someone down in public and you're running, and it's a hot day, as it usually is in Israel, unless it's like winter or something. But even in the winter, it gets hot. What happens when you finally get to where you want to go? You're thirsty. So it says you got to be thirsty. But you know what the real thirst is? You are really thirsty. Your neshama is thirsty for Torah. You may not know it, but you want to make your neshama happy? Give it the Torah of the Hakhamim. Because when you do that, you're bringing life to your neshama. And you know what? Many of us have neshamot that are upset at us, and then we get like, we're always like nervous or we're at edge or we don't feel quite right. Something is not the way it should be. And all this talking about water is making me thirsty. So hold on 1 second. So your neshama is thirsty for Torah. And the Mishnah is saying it. You need the Torah to live and to be alive. Okay, that's such an important point because it's not like the physical thirst where we immediately, oh, I need water. This thirst is different. You may not even know that you're thirsty, and yet you need it. Okay, that's the one level. That's the one level of the Mishnah. I'm going to explain the second level in a moment. As soon as I get my water. Are there any questions until now before I go to the deeper level? Okay, so I'm not going to go to the deeper level. Thank you, Shalom. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol hem baro. Okay, thank you. So here goes. What I taught you is the Peshat of the Mishnah, and I believe the Peshat speaks for itself. You don't need to go to the Derash, but I'll give you the deeper level, because oftentimes these Mishnot have subtext. There's one of the great Hakhamim, is Rabbi Emmanuel Pirqe from Livorno. He wrote a beautiful Perush on the Mishnah called Hon Ashir about 300 some years ago. Another great Hacham is Rabbi David Pardo, also wrote a beautiful Perush on the Mishnah, Shoshanim le David. And having studied these books, and you see many deep things in the Mishnah, and you realize that the Mishnah, sometimes you read the Mishnah and you think, okay, it's kind of understand it. The Mishnah is a very, very deep text. There are so many different levels you can go into the Mishnah. So I learned this from these Perushim on the Mishnayot. So let me give you my thoughts about this Mishnah. Yehi betecha bet va'ad lahachamim. How can each one of you make your house a meeting place for the Hakhamim? So, well, I guess I have to invite rabbis over. But let's say no rabbi. Let's say you don't have room in your house for rabbis or for classes. And the answer is you can make your house a meeting place for the Hakhamim. You buy the books of the Hakhamim. You study those books. And those Hakhamim are alive in your house. They used to ask me, I'm like La Omer in Israel. I lived in Israel. So, they have these bonfires and many people go to Meron and they do, light candles and stuff like that. So people used to ask me, what are you doing for Lag Laomer? I say, I'm going to study Torah. And they found it a little odd. And so particular Hilulah of a rabbi, we're going to the grave of the rabbi. And I always say, the rabbi is not in that grave now. I mean, people have difficulty understanding this. The rabbi is in Olam Haba. He's not there. And then, what? It's just too too immense. I say, but if you want to be close to the rabbi, open up his book. I remember it was the Hilulav Harambam, and I said, what greater thing does Harambam want? Harambam wants us visiting his grave, or Harambam wants us opening up the Mishneh Torah, the Moreh Nebuchim, the Igerot, the She'elot Utshuvot. What does he want us doing? Reading his books or visiting his grave? His grave. Which one? I mean, what do you think? And the Gemara says in Masechet Yevamot that if you study the words of a Chacham, the pasuk says, "Siftotav shoshanim dovevot," that the sefatayim of the Hakhamim dovevot b'kaver, that the lips of the Chacham is literally moving. What does it mean? It's moving. He's like enjoying the fact that you're reading his words, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So you want to be close to a Chacham? I've done this many times. I always want to be close to Hakhamim. I read their works, and by the way, I got to tell you, I really feel close to them when I do it. I'm like, it's like I'm in the Bet Midrash. Like I was studying Masechet Shavuot about 2 years ago, and there's a perush of Rabbi Yosef ben Megas. You don't have his perush on the rest of a lot of the books. Most of the Shas you don't have his perush, but the Masechet Shavuot, the whole Masechet Shavuot, and he's the teacher of Harambam's father, Rabbi Yosef ben Megas, the student of the Rif, Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi. He was in the Yeshiva of Lucena. And when you read the book, it's like he's there. I'm studying with Rabbi Yosef ben Megas. He was there with me. We were studying Masechet Shavuot. He was teaching it to me. I was a student. That's how you get close to the Hakhamim. So when it says Yehi betecha bedvad laHakhamim, you invite the Hakhamim to your house by studying their works. That's step one. Let's look at step two. Veheve mit'abek ba'afar raglehem. What does it mean you should be covering yourself with the dust of their feet? That's a little more challenging, but I think I know what it means. So, and this happens a lot when you study Gemara. So you're studying a page in Gemara, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going back and forth, and there's different shitot, and it's not easy, right? So it's easy to kind of like, okay, you read it, and you kind of like, yeah, he said this, and he said this, and keep going and going and going. And if somebody asks you, okay, what did you just study? It might be a bit challenging sometimes to repeat it. So like what I do with my Talmidim when I study Gemara, and I did this with my sons, whenever we would study a sugya, they had to repeat it by heart, meaning repeat the whole sugya, what the Chacham said, what the reasoning was, what the pasuk was, what the halakha was, because if you can't repeat it, you really don't understand it, right? So, but then there are these things that are really hard to follow. And it says, what does mit'abek mean? So there's a person in Perashat Vayishlach, it says, Vayavek ish imo. What does that mean? Who is it talking about in Perashat Vayishlach? It's talking about Yaakov Avinu. So Yaakov Avinu is ne'evak with the malach. So what does it mean that you have to be mit'abek? Sometimes you want to study these difficult sugyot in the Gemara and the perushim of the great Hakhamim on these sugyot. You really have to wrestle. It's mit'abek ba'afar raglehem. Don't be afraid. Jump into the dust and exercise your brain and get into those discussions at a deep level. Don't do it superficially. Just opening, if sometimes you're tired and you can't study Gemara, so don't study Gemara. Study something else. But if you're going to study, then study. You understand the point of veheve mit'abek ba'afar raglehem? And finally, veheve shoteh besama it's divrehem. And the last point is, when you do this effort, when you make this effort to really understand the text deeply, you're giving your neshama delicious cold water to a thirsty spirit. That's what this Talmud Torah does to the person. So that's a Mishnah. That was a statement of Yosef ben Yoezer. If you have any questions, I will take them now.
Not a question. I always looked at this also as speaking of humility, like to be at the dust of their feet, meaning to look upon them aspirationally.
Right, I agree. Of course, right. There is an aspect of humility,
and also the concept of drinking for thirst versus like drinking for pleasure, which to me, reference the learning of Torah as like essential
Yeah.
and like crucial, not as something extraneous or just for an intellectual exercise, but rather something that you need to live.
Yes, yes, yes. And I want to read to you what the Sifre says, the Midrash on Perashat Ekev, because there's a pasuk in Perashat Ekev that says, "Lalechet bechol derachav uldobka vo." The pasuk says you should go in the ways of God, and you should cleave onto Him. Dovka bo. Dovka is lashon devek, like glue. There's a similar pasuk with Adam and Chava. It says, "Az ya'azov ish." Exactly. So that pasuk uses the same word. V'davak be'ishto. So the Gemara says, how can it says? It's a midrash. In the Sifra. It's also I think the Gemara in Masechet Nedarim Samech Bet also brings the same midrash. So it is, but I'm reading from the Sifra. It says as follows: Techi he'ach efshar lo le'adam la'alot lamarom uldobkabo. How can the pasuk tell us to cleave unto God? We are physical. God is not physical. So can a person go up, reach God and somehow cleave unto Him? How can the pasuk say that? The pasuk says that God is like a fire. Why does the pasuk compare God to a fire? To teach us the same way one must keep distance from a fire, otherwise he will get burned. One cannot come close to the Shekhinah, otherwise he can get burned. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, when he sees the fire, the Shekhinah, what's the first thing he does? He covers his face. He doesn't want to look because he understands this is something you stay away from. So how can the Torah tell us the exact opposite? The Torah says, no, you should be close to, you cleave unto him. So, Ella, hidabek b'Hachamim. It means come close to the Hakhamim. U'talmidehem, be close with the Talmidei Hakhamim. U'ma'ale ani alecha ke'ilu alita lamanom. If you're close to the Hakhamim and you study Torah with the Hakhamim, that's as if although you went up to Har Sinai. Benatalta Torah, and as if although you yourself personally received the Torah. You understand the point? So this is aligned with what you said before. So there is a sense of humility in the way we approach the Hakhamim. We show a certain respect to the Hakhamim, a certain love to the Hakhamim, but also a certain intellectual deference to the Hakhamim. Because it's not all about, some people think it's all about intellect. So the higher the intellect, you can decode the pasuk better than him. No, there's masoret. And the Hakhamim have the masoret. And to the extent they have the masoret, then we come and we study Torah with the Hakhamim who have this masoret. You understand? So that's this Mishnah. This Mishnah is parallel to, so look at Shimon HaTzadik. Going back to Shimon HaTzadik, I'm covering it. So he said three things. Al shalosha devarim ha'olam omed ala Torah. Ala Torah, what is Torah? So that's this Mishnah here. Yosef ben Yoezer was discussing the Torah. He was discussing how one can bring Torah into his world so that the world continues to stand, right? Look at Shimon HaTzadik again. Then it says, Al ha'avodah. What's avodah? Avodah, we learned from,
Korbanot, I thought we said, right?
Right, no, so, right. So we did say that at one point. That is the standard, yes, that is the standard interpretation. But it literally means how to worship God. And I said the worship of God is not only korbanot, but it is partially korbanot, right? But it could also be tefillah. It could also be the attitude that we have towards God. And that's antignos ish socho. The avadim is milashon avodah. What is an ayaved? Ayaved is a person who does avodah for his master. So this Mishnah of antignos ish socho is telling us something about the avodah. So what's left now? Which one of the three things of Shimon HaTzadik didn't we study? Gemilut hasadim. Gemilut hasadim, we're now going to see in the next Mishnah. So you see how it all ties together so nicely? I got that from two places. One is Rabbi Moshe al-Mosnino, on his Perush on Pirqe Abot, he brings it. And another place I saw it was Don Yishak Abarbanel. Don Yishak Abarbanel has a beautiful Perush also. They both beautiful, many beautiful Perushim on the Pirqe Avot. So Don Yishak Abarbanel brings this Perush as well. So they both bring the same Perush, both of them. Okay? So I give credit where credit is due. Okay. Let us continue now. So to the Mishnah that has to do with Gemilut Chasadim. Okay? So this is his partner, Yosef ben Yochanan, Ish Yerushalayim, Omer, Yehi vetecha patuach lirvacha, or fatuach lirvacha. Your house should be wide open. I will explain that in a moment. Veyihiyu aniyim bene betecha. And if you have a house, so if you have people, you have helpers in your house, let the helpers in your house be the poor. I will explain that also. And finally, the al tarbe siha im ha'isha. And one should not increase idle or improper chatter with the woman. I will explain that also. Let's start with the hibetecha fatuach lirvacha. So I was actually, I probably can understand this Mishnah because I spend many, I have many beautiful memories from my childhood and even from my teenagehood and my 20s and my 30s in my grandparents in Haifa. My wife tells me the same thing about her grandfather in Halab. What does it mean? It means as follows. Back in the days, when Jews would travel from town to town, there were no hotels. Hotels are a relatively modern invention. And to the extent that there were, small inns, these inns were oftentimes very dangerous places because the inn owners would take advantage of the fact that they have a guest in their house, and often they would invite robbers over to take away whatever property the guests may have. So it was the Jewish custom that in every city, there were people who would invite guests over to their house, and the house would be kind of a sort of inn for Jewish travelers. This happened in two ways. One way was the actual Bet HaKnesset. The Bet HaKnesset, in the Bet HaKnesset, there were rooms for Jewish travelers. And the Shulchan Aruch makes Pesach Halacha based upon the Gemara, and Rambam makes Pesach Halacha based upon the Gemara.
We used to say Kiddush on Friday night in Bet Knesset to be Yotzei those people.
Exactly. Now, how can you say Kiddush in the Bet Knesset if we have a principle and Kiddush?
And Kiddush Ela b'makom seudah.
Ela b'makom seudah.
Rav and Shmuel have a machloket about that. One of them says it's for the guests who used to sleep there, right? And then the other one says, no, you're supposed to be yotzeh at home. Ultimately, we stopped doing that pretty much for the most part. We don't do it in Bet Knesset on Friday night because we don't have guests sleeping in the knis anymore.
Correct. Now,
there are still some places that do it.
There are some places that do
and
it.
And then they have a katan drink.
And and then there is, especially among the Ashkenazim, they have that quite a lot. Now, what they had in the synagogue was they would have, and Arav Ovadia Yosef actually discusses this in one of his classes, where the synagogue, there was, of course, a room that they would pray in, and they would say, the Hazan would say Kiddush after the Tefillah Friday night, and on the side, by the synagogue, there were rooms open to the synagogue, were like bedrooms for the people who were guests. They would go into, because you're not allowed to sleep inside a knis. It's haram to sleep in a knis. It's disrespectful. So they would open the doors to their room. They would be sitting in their room. The Hazan would be saying Kiddush, and then they would continue their private meals in their rooms. So it was Kiddush b'makom seudah. That's the reason they made that law. That's number one. Number two, my wife tells me that her grandfather in Halab, he had a, Baruch Hashem, he had a beautiful house, a large house, and it was known. Any Jewish people who would be traveling, they would go to Dibo Dwek Alav Shalom, Dibo Dwek, and he would have the house open, and he had a special room, a beautiful big room for the guests. This was considered a tremendous zechut, because you're really saving these people. You know, what are these people going to do? Where are they going to go? So somebody's traveling in business, he goes to the houses, either the Bet Knesset or the Batim. So he's saying, Yehi betecha fatuach lirvacha. This is a great zechut. Now let me explain to you the way the zechut works. Hashem gives us a lot of beautiful things in our lives. Some people have beautiful voices. Some people are blessed with money. Whatever the, you know, some people have a certain eloquence about some things. And the Hakhamim say, Barech et Hashem mehonecha. Always you should give thanks to Hashem from that which Hashem graced you with. So if you are graced with something special, you must find a way to thank Hashem for that. And the way to thank Hashem for that is not just to say thank you. You should say thank you. But it's also to do something with what you got, which is meaningful. So if you have a beautiful house, if you're one of those people and you have a large house and you can have a special room there for the guests, for the Jewish travelers back then. Today, I think, you know, maybe it's a little different. Do it. Do it. Because that's the best way to show Hashem that you appreciate what he got you. So Yehi betecha fatuach lirvacha. That's number one. That's number one. Number two. Oh, and I said about my grandparents. I remember growing up in Haifa. There was a really beautiful. Whenever there were aniyim in the synagogue, my grandparents would bring them to the house, and it was like, I remember just growing up. It would be like a seudat shelamo hamelech. It was like crazy seudah, like as if though we had the, you know, Bill Gates was visiting us, and we wanted to impress him. You know, now that I'm older, I kind of understand that the people who were visiting us weren't necessarily Bill Gates or you know, or anything like that. They were chazat. They were people who were hungry, who were literally hungry and wanted food, and they would come. And I remember that it was my job because the aniyim, they had a certain pride and they wouldn't accept money. They would come over and eat, and that was considered fine, but they wouldn't accept money because it was considered, you know, not nice to take money from somebody. And I remember it was always my job because they would leave with a big bag of all these gifts, like foods, breads. When they, like, after they would finish the seudah, they would fill up a bag for him, blankets, I don't know, whatever he needed for his house, wine bottles. So it was always my job to sneak in a wad of cash into there as well. That was like, you know, as he was leaving, I would sneak it into the bag and say goodbye, and that was that. So I remember living this as a child, and it was a very beautiful experience seeing that. Yeah. Zechut, zachiti. What can I say? It was a zechut that I had. That I was able to speak. I was able to see this. Saba Shlomo alav shalom and Savta Miriam aleh shalom. Real tzaddikim. Okay, that's the first part of the Mishnah. The second part is the second statement in the Mishnah. The Yehiyu aniyim b'nei betecha. If you're going to hire people to do work in your house, find a poor Jew and give him the work. That's the advice of the Mishnah. You know, people want money, yes, but more than money, people want jobs. So if you have something that needs to be done in your house and you have a choice and you can give it to a Jew who needs the work, give it to the Jew who needs the work. That's a tremendous zechut. I've heard so many beautiful stories about our community and what people used to do in our community to help those who didn't have jobs. I remember one of the stories, and I wish I knew the name of the person, but one of the stories was that someone just came from Halab, and he had no job, he had no money, he had no prospects, but he had a family. So one of the rich business people in our community, he was involved in garments. He told him, you know, I need some handkerchiefs for my stores. If you can find me handkerchiefs, I'll buy them from you and I'll sell them in my store. So the guy says, that's a very nice idea. The only thing is I don't have money to buy the handkerchiefs. He says, no problem. I'll give you the money to buy the handkerchiefs so that you can sell them to me, and then I will buy them from you and you'll make some money. He said, that's great. I just don't know who to buy handkerchiefs from. He says, no problem. I'll give you the name of the person to call up to buy the handkerchiefs. I'll give you the money, the name. You buy the handkerchiefs. I'll buy them from you.
Wow.
And in this, yeah, this is those were the days. Those were the days. This is not so long ago. I think we're talking 60s, 70s, 80s.
Wow.
And that's what he did.
Yeah,
And
like that number.
and eventually this person became wealthy and he learned the business and he became independent. So it's nice to do the first part of the Mishnah. That's great, like my grandparents did. But if you can give someone a job and make that person stand on his own 2 feet, wow, what a zechut that is. You understand? So that's the second part of the Mishnah. It's not just giving tzedakah. Help the person stand up. Give them a job. And finally, the al tarbeh sihai ma'isha. I'm going to explain this as Harambam explains this. Harambam says that the sikha that the Mishnah is talking about, I'm going to read it to you so you don't think I'm just trying to be politically correct or, pleasant. Just give me a moment. Harambam in the Pirush HaMishnayot.
V'yadua?
V'yadua. Who's there? Yeah. V'yadua she'asiha.
Im anashim.
Right. She'asiha im anashim ala rov ena ela b'inyanei tashmish. We're talking about speaking with the woman about improper subjects, right? So obviously that type of speech, a person says, well, so what did I do? I just spoke in an improper way. I was, fresh or whatever word you want to use. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just speech. I didn't chas v'shalom do anything. I didn't touch her. I didn't nothing. I just spoke with her. So let's read the Mishnah. It says, Al tarbeh sichai ma'isha. Number 1, you shouldn't have this type of improper
speech. That's what it's talking about.
Yes.
Wow. That's always taken out of context.
Yes. Yeah, and you saw Harambam. You have it in front of you. So
Yeah, I do.
Right. The ishto amnu. Now, even a person with his wife has to be limited in the way he speaks to her. You can't just, be, have to be a little. So not everything is, that improper. Al tarbeh sichai ma'isha. Don't. Even with your wife, don't, there's other things in life other than that. So you can speak about other things, right? So put a limit on that. So be'ishto amru, this is with your own wife. Kal v'chomer be'eshet havero. Of course, one chas v'shalom to speak with a married woman about in this way or in that manner is a terrible avon. I mean, needless to say, or maybe we should say it. Maybe it's not needless. Maybe people need to hear that. So really be careful in the way you speak with people of the other, male, female, and don't just joke around and start, making innuendos and things like that. That's a terrible avera. I want to read to you, I want to continue what Harambam says because I can't think of a better way of expressing this Mishnah. When a person speaks in this way with a woman, he's eventually going to be hurting himself. What does that mean? He's hurting his own neshama.
Is this the Perush you're reading now?
Yes. You see the Pirush HaMishnayot?
I have it, but I don't. Oh, Is that what you're reading?
Yeah, because you're reading the translation of Ibn Tibon, and I'm reading the translation of Kafech. So we have a different translation of the Pirush HaMishnayot.
Got it.
Yes, the same idea. Ve'yatav tanut. Okay, so this is an important thing. People oftentimes think that speaking is not. There's nothing wrong with speaking. No, that what you say affects your neshama. So if a person says something improper with his mouth, he's actually hurting his own neshama. So you have to be very careful, and especially in this matter, it could be a terrible avera. So reading now, I'm going back to the Mishnah. Mikan amru Hakhamim. It is because of this that Hakhamim said as follows: Kol hamarbeh sicha ima isha gorem ra'ale asmo. If somebody is going to indulge in this type of speech, he's hurting himself. Meaning you are bringing evil upon yourself. And what's going to happen? uvatel midivre Torah. He's going to end up not studying Torah. Why is he not going to be studying Torah? What's the connection? Can somebody explain that to me? So it's really simple. Or maybe it's not simple. It's profound, actually. Hashem is not going to let a tool that is impure become a tool for the holy words of God. He's not going to let that happen. So if Bar Minan, a person speaks improperly in that way, Hashem is going to make sure that this person does not receive Torah. And what does batel midivre Torah mean? It's even worse. What is batel? Batel means a person who was studying Torah, he's no longer going to study. You know what that means? That if you were a person who was a Tamir Chacham and Chas v'Shalom, you got involved in this Averah, Hashem is going to take the Torah away from you. V'sofo yirash gehinom. And the bottom, the ultimate consequence is going to be bar minan. We spoke earlier in the class about punishment. This is one of those things that, God forbid, there could be terrible punishments for it. There's a pasuk in Mishle that says that if you put your hand in a fire, you're gonna get burnt. Similarly, if a person, chas v'shalom, is involved with a woman that he's not allowed to be involved with, he's gonna get burnt. There's no way that doesn't happen. That's Shlomo HaMelech talking. And Shlomo HaMelech has a lot of knowledge.
You're talking about speech only? You're talking about, I mean...
Even speech, but how much more so? Bar minan, other things, right? Shlomo HaMelech was talking about other things, but even speech is something that can be very harmful to a person. And people think, and the reason the Mishnah emphasizes, because I didn't do anything, I just spoke. Well, I didn't do anything. No. Speech is holy. Don't abuse it. That's the message. And now, why does he bring it here with these two things? Because when a person is very kind and opens his house wide for the poor, and he does all these things.
Saying be open, but don't be too open.
Yeah. Don't lose it. Don't lose it. People who think very highly of themselves, and I look what I did, and so the flip side is you gotta be careful. Don't let this position, it's dangerous. Be aware of the danger. So on the one hand, don't shut yourself off. Give tzedakah, hire the poor people, but be very careful, bar minan, not to turn the mitzvah into an averah. I love this. This is like so true. The words of the Hakhamim are just so, there's so much wisdom here because they just ring so true. So I think we got to the end of this week's class. And tonight was Lag LaOmer. I love studying Torah. I love studying Torah any night, but I love, feeling close to the Hakhamim through their words of Torah. So you should all feel good that we spent the night not by a physical bonfire, but by the true fire, the eternal fire, which is the fire of the Torah. And I see Albert Chasson is trying to help us there. Thank you. Any questions?
Very powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
But let's, Rabbi, I just want to qualify, because the way you said it, it says kol hamarbeh, meaning this has to be ongoing. This is like a lifestyle for the person. This is a way of engaging on a regular basis. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, so let me explain to you, because it's talking about be'ishto amru. So with your wife, a little talking of that nature is fine, but even with your wife, marbeh is asur. There's other things that people who, you get married. That's why we have the laws. That's why we have the laws of separation, right? Because there's other things in the world. If that's the only thing you have in your relationship, man, you're in trouble, right? So marbeh sichai Hashem means be'ishto amru. That's his wife. Right? That's his wife. So even with your wife, you can have a little, talking, whatever, within limits. I mean, not a married woman, chas v'shalom. That's not even.
Of course.
Jump out of a plane, jump out of a plane, and don't, not make the averah of being with a married woman, even in the slightest way. That's my.
I'll refer
We're talking about sicha here, Rabbi.
Right.
We're talking about sicha. You're saying
sicha, of course, sicha.
Okay.
No, I'm a lawyer. I always have conversations every day, contracts, this, that, but that's not sicha. that's, business conversations, but I try to be careful also. I'm not gonna, have too much fun, not get too, okay.
Right.
Right. Does Sikha refer to a certain type of conversation?
Yes, the type of conversation that me as a rabbi doesn't like to elaborate upon too much.
Got it.
I could excuse myself if you guys want to do.
We're all good. We're all good.
Hakhamim
I
talk.
think anyway, it's 9:46. I think we're at the point where we can bid each other good night.
You know what? I'm just gonna. Oh, Mechila.
No, it's okay. This week, Thursday night, 8:45. Last week, we had I think it was a powerful class in Parashat HaShavua. You're all welcome. We do such peshat with Rabbeinu and Ibn Jannah, with Rabbeinu Sa'adia Gaon. It's just, wow. It's powerful. But yeah, go on. Nathan, you had a question?
I just completely appreciated that you took the pasuk and you said, hey, this is the Misorav Harambam. This is how he reads this statement from the Hakhamim. Like, obviously, that's how we use Perushim, but for some reason, this statement always stood out, because people always like to throw it at you, like, oh, don't talk to women, but that was helpful.
Yep. Gentlemen, ladies, everybody,
you.
have a lovely good night, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you very much. Chazak Baruch.
Thank you.
It's cool, Su.
Good night.